Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Jason Beckerman.
And Fabian here.
So we have been talking a lot about conservatorships over the last year, and Amanda Bynes got out of hers yesterday. And this is a genuine success story.
Yeah.
A real success story that she's been in a conservatorship for 9 years. I remember covering this where she, when you look at what happened back then, I mean, I remember this video so vividly where she tried to set her dog on fire with gasoline in a driveway, and she was then taken to a psychiatric hospital. She was in such dire, desperate shape. 9 years later, she's graduated from the Fashion Institute. She is stable, happy,
She's
engaged.
Yep.
And her parents have done such a good job managing all of this and righting the ship. And I just think I think it's really important that people can see, because I think conservatorships were just given this, horrible kind of moniker as a result of Britney Spears.
Right.
And even that, I think you've got to look at what was behind all of that, because you got to remember back to Britney. But this is a success story.
This is a huge success story and fantastic for Amanda Bynes. And I think to the points that you were making, it is a success story on the heels of Britney Spears, which was viewed as such a lack of success. Now, I think that's inaccurate, right? Remember where she was, the shaved head, sort of completely addled Britney that we had so many years ago, to this person who's now this incredible businesswoman and success story. And I think that is largely in part to the conservatorship, notwithstanding what happened at the end with her parents. But Amanda Bynes, we didn't have any of the histrionics coming to the end, and it's really wonderful to see how healthy she is. And I think we all couldn't be happier for her.
No, and to your point, we're talking about Britney Spears for a reason, because that's the obvious compare and contrast here. You know what? I would argue that Amanda Bynes was in perhaps worse shape than maybe Britney Spears was, as far as behavior. And I mean, she was, if you go back and look at some of these old TMZ videos that we were doing of her, walking around the store.
Burning dogs is I mean,
like,
that's
look,
the bottom,
we don't have to get into a pissing contest over this, but like, I would just argue
they were both in danger of dying.
Yes, potentially, yes. And look, Amanda Bynes' conservatorship is ending with a lot less noise than Britney's. And a lot of that has to do with Britney's father. It was way more acrimonious. And for this to kind of just be, it's over, it was quiet, not a whole lot of noise, I can appreciate that. And the fact that everyone was on the same page, and by the way, she hasn't even taken to social media. She's been quiet, and I don't think she's going to.
Well, there's no greater testament to how healthy she is than that she's turning down these requests for interviews.
Everybody wants to interview her.
Right.
Yeah.
She's done with show business.
And for good reason. I mean, look, I feel so bad for Amanda Bynes, because she was...
I loved Amanda Bynes.
I loved Amanda Bynes. She was so talented. She was on a rocket ship of success in her heyday. I feel like she kind of got chewed up and spit out by the industry, but...
Well, some people just aren't meant to be famous early, like
right.
Don't have.
Well, the other thing is, it's not even an issue that she didn't have the capacity. She was mentally ill.
She was doing it for a long time. She was working in show business for years and years until eventually she just couldn't take it anymore.
There are a lot of, and listen, a lot of people have different degrees of mental illness.
Yeah.
I would argue most people have some degree.
Sure.
And you manage it, but.
Not you, Harv. You're solid.
Everybody does. Everybody does. Everybody has issues. And, and it's just, I don't know. I mean, what I love about this so much is that I think she's been kind of introspective enough to say show business is not for me.
Sure.
Because even people who get chewed up and spit out the way you say, they still want back. And she's figured it out.
So, and one last point I'll make about this, and this is more of like just an open question, and I'm not trying to take shots at Britney Spears. I love Britney Spears. I'm happy for Britney Spears, obviously. But Britney Spears, in the wake of being released from the conservatorship, she keeps doing this dance of like taking to social media, posting these very long captions that much of which are rambling, sometimes nonsensical. She's always teasing the idea of like, oh, people want me for an interview. There's a book deal about her that's being talked about. So she's teasing a comeback of sorts, I think, and being very coy about it. And some people say that Britney Spears' behavior in the wake of being released from the conservatorship is cringeworthy and kind of like unbecoming. And then here's the contrast. Amanda Bynes, quiet, minding her business, doesn't want back in show business. Is Amanda Bynes, the way she's dealing with this, does that make Britney Spears look bad? And look, Britney Spears defenders and her fans will say, no, how dare you? But A lot of the Britney Spears content that has come out since being released from the conservatorship, I have cringed and cringed and cringed at it. Like, Jesus, like, shut up. I don't want to say shut up, like, geez, like, just.
It's a point. It's a point that.
Look, I mean, people are saying what's going on with Britney. Look, she's living her life.
Yeah.
And
I'm happy for her.
she's not hurting anybody. And, the conservatorship was not working for her.
Right.
And so, they're different people. And, Britney is just a very different person from Amanda Bynes in every respect.
Yeah.
I mean, Amanda Bynes has given up show business. Britney has not.
Right.
Amanda Bynes is a private person. Britney is not.
Right.
And Amanda Bynes got along with her family. Britney certainly does not get along with hers.
Right.
They're
different situations, different
totally
circumstances.
different situations.
Right, I get it.
Bob Saget. So the police have now released photos and video inside the room where Bob Saget died in the hotel room of the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando. And they've highlighted the headboard of the bed, which is their theory on how Bob Saget died, that he got into bed, that he leaned back or did something where he hit his head. They said it was consistent with hitting a hard surface that was covered by a soft surface, which is the same as the headboard.
Like a padded type of thing.
That's right.
Right.
So that's what they've kind of released, and now the question, has it satisfied people? And I think the answer is no.
No, absolutely not.
It doesn't make it defies common sense is what it
Yeah,
does.
I mean,
right?
let's just think about this. If you look at the headboard, it's kind of built into the wall. If you go to our website, you'll see these photos. The headboard is built into the wall. It looks quite padded to me. It doesn't look like, I mean, you could probably hit it hard enough and hurt and make it hurt, but to think for Bob Saget to
look, it's the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. It's very fancy. It has a beautiful padded headboard behind the bed.
But they're saying there on the edges. They're saying that there was wood, and I don't know whether it was exposed or just closer to the surface. But look, they say they don't know.
Do we think Bob Saget got into bed and swung his head back like, no, he didn't. Like that doesn't make any type of sense.
Have you ever gotten into bed and just been so exhausted? Remember,
you just kind of flopped down. I guess
he did a 2-hour show. Drove for 2 hours to the hotel.
I suppose it's possible.
Gets in there at 2:15 in the morning.
It just doesn't
talks to the valet. Gets in bed. He may have taken a shower. The towel was out in the bathroom. Toiletries were out.
Also,
so I don't know what
there was a hairdryer on the counter as well. So it seems he
took a shower.
He took a shower.
Although, why would you have a hairdryer if you're going to sleep?
I said this to Fabian about 20 minutes ago. I am puzzled by the hairdryer. He's going to sleep. I mean, maybe
hair dryers are usually for longer hair individuals.
Well, and also they're when you take a shower and you're getting ready to go out.
Yeah, you're
not to go to bed.
Correct.
I mean,
so I look. Here's the thing about it. We know that nobody was in that room. I mean, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it must be foul." Yeah. So nobody was in the room. We can all agree.
He wasn't whacked or anything.
We can all agree.
We can debunk that conspiracy theory.
So whatever happened, we can all agree, kind of almost certainly happened in the room.
Yeah. I honestly think he might have had some sort of a seizure, and fallen backward on the floor, and maybe hit his head on the carpet of the floor in the bathroom.
But that's my theory. If that happened, Fabian, why is he tucked in bed?
Well, it didn't hurt him bad. It didn't knock him cold, but
maybe he seized, fell back, hit his head, and then stunned himself and woke back up again.
The seizure, though, is irrelevant. I think that he fell on something. The bathroom floor, to me, makes the most logical sense. He's hurt bad enough.
Except if you hit your head that hard on a bathroom floor, you're going to bleed, and there was no blood.
Well, covered by the mat. Look, to your point, it's based on what we know. Even the cops, even the authorities,
they don't know.
They don't know.
It's a mystery. It's weird. By the way, how eerie are these? Like when I saw the photos, man, they are eerie. Like it's a creepy. It looks like a normal room, but in the context of Bob Saget having died there, it is super creepy.
And you do understand the dynamic here, because this has happened with Whitney Houston. It's happened with so many people, where this kind of ghoulish thing where people go to the hotel and say, "Can I have Bob Saget's room? Can I have Whitney Houston's room?"
Right.
And they do this all the time.
And one last point I'll make about this: what adds an extra layer of mystery here is the fact that his family seems dead set on concealing these records. I think I read a report this week saying that
not the records, photos, the death photos.
Yeah, the death photos. They don't want a lot of this information out in the public. Obviously, these got out in the public.
It's not about the information, though. It's about the prurient interest in the photos.
Okay.
Of her,
they don't want.
But some people read these headlines and think, "Why is the family trying?"
No,
that's a lot.
Yeah. I know this because look, we've been working on this story a lot. The family is not.
So that's a mischaracter.
It's a total
misunderstanding.
The family doesn't want death pictures out there, which is totally understandable.
I get that for sure.
I mean, and they've been great.
Yeah, they've gone through a lot.
I want to talk about this because I find this really interesting. So Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal, they are two UFC fighters who were once best friends,
Now
even
arch
roommates.
enemies,
They hate each other now.
Right.
They had a fight a couple of weeks ago. Colby cleaned Jorge's clock. And then we get this video outside a restaurant the other day in Florida where Jorge basically ambushed Colby coming out of this restaurant, hit him twice, chipped a tooth, and now there's a criminal investigation. So the question that I want to raise, when two UFC fighters are basically going at each other in the octagon and it spills out into the real world and one of them attacks the other, is that a prosecutable or should that be a prosecutable offense?
Why wouldn't it be? I mean, Conor McGregor.
Conor
Conor McGregor is the perfect example of somebody who constantly did this
and mostly didn't get prosecuted.
He did. Yeah,
Well,
right.
he did. He had a cop plea.
He got
right?
off. He got off.
The sentence wasn't much, but he copped a plea.
Yeah, he had to go through the ringer a little
Well,
bit.
you're forgetting there were multiple cases.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a case I think in Florida where
There was also one in Ireland, I believe.
In
where-
Ireland, nothing happened to him.
Right.
That's where he hit
But
the guy.
That was the biggest deal where he like punched somebody.
Well,
and it was
no.
on video.
The biggest deal was where he threw the dolly through the
Oh,
tour
yeah,
bus.
I mean,
Yeah.
And-
it was a
and-
laundry
And
and-
list.
shards of glass hit people in the face. So It was a big deal.
And if that were a different situation and not Conor McGregor, I mean, it's almost attempted murder. It's a deadly weapon, and you're and he got hit. You know, it was a slap in the wrist.
So you asked the question, is it prosecutable? The answer is yes. Will it be prosecuted? The answer is probably no,
Right.
right? Because there's a code, and we can say what we want about the code, but there's a code between this group of combat athletes
Sure.
that they're not going to press charges against one another. And I can't imagine.
When is that?
And I'm sure Dana White is involved in this at this point too.
Well,
talking to
Dana,
both of them.
Dana has got to love this because they're probably going to fight again, and it just makes the fight better.
Sure, I'm sure that's true. He loves the PR aspect of it, at teasing a potential new fight, but he doesn't want any real world ramifications to come from this. So he's probably telling both Colby and George, hey, drop it, leave it in the streets kind of thing. And if cops, and this happens all the time, we cover this all the time, if there's no cooperation from either party, cops are going to send their findings to the DA, and the DA is going to be like, yeah, we're not going to prosecute this. This is not worth it.
My takeaway, what a bitch move by Masvidal.
Oh, for
here.
sure.
Like,
for
he gets
sure.
beat in the ring, fair and square. And by the way, not just like on a decision. I mean, he got annihilated.
Right,
For
he did.
5 consecutive rounds. He got beat badly by a much better fighter. So he can't beat him in the ring. So instead, he sucker punches him, right? He comes up in the dark
agree.
of night in the side of the head and punches him twice.
It makes him look weak.
And he came on the scene. If you guys remember, he had been in the UFC for a long time and came off the scene with one of the great punches in UFC history and burst onto the scene because he was such a badass.
Right.
And now he does this, and it's just a chicken move. It
Yeah.
just really is.
The word you're looking for is bitch, by the way. It's a
That's the
bitch
word
move.
He did say it,
actually.
But it is true that you know at some point, you know, I get it. He chipped a tooth. It's not life or death.
Right.
If it got worse, at a point, does this become a thing where it's prosecutable? I don't understand this code thing. I mean,
What do you mean? Like among
what
the
Jason's
fighters?
saying,
Or?
yeah, that there's a code that if somebody ambushes you outside a restaurant, there's a code you're not going to prosecute him. Screw that. Prosecute him. Why not? Why?
I mean, look,
Because you got to answer the rest of the UFC. You don't want
Well,
that.
yeah, the answer to the UFC is I'll fight you in the octagon and clean your clock.
Yeah, that's
But
probably
I'm
what
not-
he'd say to
But I'm
Masvidal.
not gonna. But you're not gonna ambush me outside a restaurant.
to his point about the code, I think, especially like if you're like, and I hate to even put it in this way, but like if you're like a man's man like these guys are, like, look, back in the old days in like the 70s and the 80s, you got in a fight with a guy outside of a bar. You ended it right there. You squashed the beef right there. Cops were never called. Like, it was just back in the old days, you could just fight a guy and whoever won, and it was over with. And there was no cops, there was no lawsuits. These days, I'm talking as if I was alive back then. I wasn't. But these days, if anyone touches you, litigation, lawsuits.
No, you're right.
And people are just
But I'm not talking. Look, I couldn't agree with you more on that.
right.
That it's just this snowflake kind of thing that you've offended me. I'm gonna right.
Right.
I get it. This is different.
Yeah, this is not a snowflake incident. This is he broke his tooth.
You're
And
right. It was-
ambushed
yeah,
him
sucker
and
punch,
slugged him
yeah.
twice. Come
Right.
on, in the mouth.
That's true. If it was more of like they saw each other, they squared off, and it was more of like a fair fight, perhaps they would have just like left it alone.
Right. I mean, then it's mutual
But-
combat,
sure.
and it's not a big deal.
Don't
Right.
you think, regardless of the way it should be, that Colby Covington would pay a price in his profession if he were to testify against
He
Masvidal
would.
in a court proceeding?
100%.
Don't you think he would pay a price
would.
professionally?
within the ranks of the UFC, people would look down upon that, and they would say this is a sucker move. It's almost like the mafia a little bit. Like, I mean, is the UFC like not low key its own little like Cosa Nostra kind of thing?
But
I'm not minus the actual crime, obviously, but like as far as the brotherhood and the fraternity, like it is
right. But I think that in some ways goes to prosecute them. That these guys fight in the octagon for as a profession, and whether they like each other or hate each other, and it's a combination. That's what they do for a living,
right? And
to then take it outside where people get ambushed. I would think a lot of those guys inside there would say definitely go prosecute him.
I don't think so.
I hear the point that you're making, but I just don't see it happening.
I don't think this is canis mas macho to say, oh, I'm not going to prosecute. I don't think it's that at all. No. I think a lot of those guys think screw Jorge Masvidal for what he did.
Well, Colby Covington is mas macho in this situation.
For sure.
Okay. We're going to end with the hearing on the Supreme Court Justice nominee. I think this is fascinating.
It's becoming a circus.
It's always been a circus.
Yeah, but like right now, it's at the peak. It's peak circus. It's peak clownery. So this is for Ketanji Brown Jackson, Joe Biden's pick. And if you watch these hearings, they've been going on for a few days now. Whenever a Republican is up there whenever they're grilling her, whenever a Republican is grilling her, including Lindsey Graham, especially Ted Cruz, you can clearly see that they're not interested in asking her about her record, about the way she.
No, they're getting in everybody.
They're bringing up everything else. They're talking about race. They're talking about how Amy Coney Barrett was treated. They're talking about how they just want to relitigate issues that are on.
Isn't there a point there though that we've had especially Brett Kavanaugh, we had 3 days of testimony in that case from Kavanaugh. I don't remember a single question about his judicial record.
You're right. That was a clown show too. And but I guess the point is look, it's in the past though. Like why do you feel the need to relitigate it right now?
I'll tell you what's weird about this, and this has been going on now for a long time.
Yeah, ever since Trump got in office.
It's not about the nominee anymore.
No, it never.
It's about
for years it's
about the senators stating their position to the world in a big forum. That asking them questions that really can't be answered. How would you rule on this? They shouldn't answer that question because you can't answer a question like that.
And the senators know this.
It's inappropriate because you cannot ask an abstract question like that without being presented a set of facts.
Right.
And that's the difference. And they're just asking. The biggest thing that happened in the hearing yesterday, the most important thing that happened in the hearing yesterday that kind of came and went and nobody even commented on particularly and will cement all the votes is when she said, I think that Roe versus Wade is settled law.
Right.
Period.
Right.
That is, for better or worse, that's where they're all going to come down.
Right.
For or against her. The Democrats are going to vote for her. Most Republicans are going to vote against her.
Right.
And then all of the other stuff where Ted Cruz pulls out children's books.
When you just testified a minute ago that you didn't know if critical race theory was taught in K through 12, I will confess I find that statement a little hard to reconcile. They include a book called Anti-Racist Baby, really quite remarkable. One portion of the book says babies are taught to be racist or anti-racist. There is no neutrality. Another book that is on the summer reading for 3rd through 5th grade is a book called Stamped for Kids. On page 33, it asks the question, can we send white people back to Europe? That's what's being given to 8 and 9 years old. Now, what this book argues for is the exact opposite of what Dr. King spoke about on the floor of the Lincoln Memorial. And are you comfortable with these ideas being taught to children?
Senator, I have not reviewed any of those books, any of those ideas. They don't come up in my work as a judge.
That's the point.
Right.
100%. So just for a little bit of context, why he was asking her about this. So she sits on the board for a private school in D.C.
Right.
Georgetown Day School is what it's called. She sits on the board, and he was basically saying, hey, look, I skimmed through the curriculum. Here's what's being assigned to kids this age, this age, this age. These are the books.
Right.
He's laying out, well, this is ridiculous. We're not going to get into that. He was basically trying to say, do you agree with this? And he was trying to put the whole critical race theory debate right onto her, and she rightly said, my job on the board is not reviewing the curriculum. We deal with other matters.
But guess
so I don't
what?
know what the hell you're talking about.
But here's the thing. Suppose she agrees with critical race theory. Suppose she disagrees. Who cares? Her point is, my favorite quote that I remember from law school, there was a judge named McReynolds who was arguably the stupidest judge ever to sit in the U.S. Supreme Court. However, he said something that I have never forgotten that is just so interesting. He said, an amorphous dummy, oh God, how am I forgetting this now? An amorphous dummy unspotted by human emotion is an unbecoming receptacle for judicial power. And what that means is that everybody has opinions. Everybody brings their personal views to wherever they are.
Yep.
The issue is, can you put them aside? When we have jury trials, they all have personal views, and we say to jurors, you got to put that aside, and we allow them to do it.
Right.
Yet for some reason, senators don't want to do that with Supreme Court justice nominees.
Right.
They want to think, if you have an opinion, you're disqualified. She can have, I'm sure she has opinions on everything. She's a brilliant person.
Right.
And so she has opinions. So what? You put those opinions aside when you sit on the bench.
Right.
That is the beginning and the end of everything. But they want to make it, and you know what they're doing too is they're going through, and they've done this with a lot of other nominees, and it's just ridiculous. They're going through, when she was a public defender, they're looking at some of the briefs where she went in hard, you know,
representing her clients.
At one point, she was fighting on the Guantanamo Bay issue.
She was representing Gitmo detainees,
and she called Bush a war criminal. Or she actually didn't. She didn't use the word war criminal.
She
said it's a war crime.
She said the Bush administration have committed war crimes,
Right.
and a senator, I think it was John, he was from Texas somewhere. He was pissed at it. How could you call Bush a war criminal? And then she was like, "That's not exactly what I said." But interestingly enough,
she was an advocate.
She caved actually to his pressure. She said, I did not mean to call him a war criminal. I don't think I called him a war criminal, but that's not what I meant.
But she was an advocate.
She was right. Yeah, I mean, she was just doing her job at the time.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. It shows where we are as a country politically, that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she was nominated to the bench, was confirmed by a vote of 97-3, I suppose. If she was put up for the bench today, it would be a 50-50 or 51-49 split.
Yeah.
Not because she's any different, not because she's any less of a jurist.
It's that the senators have changed.
The senators have changed. The country has changed.
Yeah.
If you are a Trump supporter and your senator, your Republican senator, votes for this candidate, you will be voted out of office. Trump will speak out against you. And then on the left, it's the same thing.
I want to end with this. Answer me.
Riddle me this? No.
I was just going to say riddle me this. I literally was going to say riddle me this.
Batman movie?
No, I was going to do riddle me this. Explain to me how somebody can get overwhelming approval, almost like a 97-3 vote, for Court of Appeals.
Right.
But when the same senators are looking at her for the Supreme Court, it becomes 51-49. Explain that to me.
She was overwhelmingly approved
and
in
not
lower courts.
And you should understand what a lower court is. This is the Federal Court of Appeals, one step below the Supreme Court. They have enormous power and setting precedent and setting things up for the Supreme Court. So what they say hugely matters. How does she get overwhelming support for that? And a year later, all of a sudden, it falls by the wayside.
And not a single Republican senator who supported her has come out for the appeals nomination, has come out and voiced support for her for the Supreme Court.
It's absurd.
It's pure hypocrisy. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
It's pure politics, right?
And theater, too. A lot of theater.
Yeah, it's about shoring your base.
But politics where we are now, it wasn't that way before.
No. It was
that's because, not to get down this rabbit hole, but Donald Trump has literally changed everything about politics as we know it.
Donald Trump has been terrible for politics. I agree with you. This issue was long before Donald Trump.
Although during the Clinton administration, we had Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but you did have this
Merrick Garland.
That's Trump's doing. But
no, it's not. Well, it's
that
not
was
Trump's.
Obama's nominee.
That was Obama's nominee.
That Mitch McConnell, et cetera, said we're going to wait until the election.
So what I'm saying is, it predated Trump.
It predates him.
And I mean, you go back and you look at Robert Bork. I mean, you can go you can go way back.
Yeah.
And you know, it's this country.
It's tearing itself apart.
We need a hero. We're holding out for a hero. I'm telling you, we are. We're holding out.
For a hero. I think a lot these days about Robert Kennedy.
Yeah.
I mean, I got so involved in that campaign when I was a teenager, when I was 16, 17, and he was a hero as far as I was concerned.
Definitely considered a visionary.
And I remember when he was assassinated, and I was just thinking, boy, it really, to this day, I was there. I was the ambassador.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
And I mean, I was involved in the campaign.
Right.
And I just, it's never been the same.
We have not come
It's
across
just never
somebody
been the
quite
same.
like that
We
again.
lost Robert Kennedy. We got Richard Nixon. It worked out like it worked out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we'll see you Friday.
Take care.